Folks, I realized when I was a paramedic dealing with PTSD symptoms, they didn't even call it that at the time. I knew I had two options. I could go to a talk therapist, or then I could move forward and get my hormonal system checked. And because I knew about the physiology, and I've always been fascinated with the physiology, I knew that my thyroid, my adrenal glands, my growth hormone was all suppressed. So part of my rehab process was finding a doctor that would correct my testosterone, thyroid, cortisol, and growth hormone deficiencies. All those things impacted the feel-good chemicals in my brain, serotonin and dopamine. And I'm not saying talk therapy is bad, it's needed. But the talk therapy, along with the combination of hormonal and nutritional replacement therapy, that's going to be the future of treatment protocols, folks. You agree with that, Bruce?
Yeah, it needs to be. I remember being involved in a traumatic incident right after I got on the force. A small child had been run over. I'd never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, right.
And so there are a lot of people involved in it, from officers on the scene to first responders, medical personnel, dispatchers. So the response to that was talk therapy. And I wish it had been one-on-one, but it really wasn't. It was a group session involving some victims advocates, and we talked about it, and it was made available to us, but that was it. There was nothing else. There was nothing one-on-one, and if you wanted any additional help, you were on your own.
How about that? Suck it up, homie.
Well, yeah.
This is what you signed up for.
Yeah, and that was the philosophy and a lot of the thought process for especially police officers. You know, like I said before, those big tough guys that can handle just about anything, but like I said, you can't do that consistently. And I wish something else had been made available. It's not something that impacted me negatively in the long run, but it's something I always remember.
Yeah, and that's that flashbulb image I was telling you about. When you're on a traumatic scene, and neurologically I could explain this, folks, but I will put you to sleep, and I want to do that. But all I'm saying is when you're involved in a traumatic situation, your adrenaline levels goes up. It imprints that scene into your head. And then, like Bruce and I've done this, I've run scenarios in my head. I can't sleep at night. So how am I going to tell a girlfriend, my wife, my friends that you end up being isolated, or you start hanging out with the police officers? You just hang out with people that get you, and that isn't healthy either. But how do you explain to people, what you're going through, and then at the same time you're in a job where you can't show any weakness? Like when I was on the scene and I started to break up on the scene, I'm getting emotional. I'm hearing this girl cry. I'm in charge of everybody, and I'm like, Jesus. And that field are like wolves. You see any weakness, you're done. Bruce did something really, really unique. He started looking at intermittent fasting, which is going to be a hot topic, and also the ketogenic diet. And he's going to tell you about what he experienced. I think that's fascinating that you started that.
Yeah, it was something new for me. It's something one of the few diets that I hadn't tried, because trust me, I've tried just about all of them. The one that had worked best for me up until that point was the Atkins diet. But everything was so high protein and very little carb, but I still found myself hungry all the time. And then I switched to the 3 square meals a day, which did absolutely nothing for me. And then I tried the 6 meals a day, which was okay, but I found myself always looking towards that next meal, and it was distracting in kind of a way. But after speaking with you, I tried a ketogenic diet, a little bit higher fat level, a little less protein, and a little lower carbs. And you explained to me the difference in how your body, the metabolism kicks in after a certain point, certain number of hours of fasting.
Yeah, and I wanted to be careful with you because
Uh-oh.
no, I'm saying I didn't want you to. Can you imagine? You're used to having your blood sugar elevated, and then now I'm saying, hey Bruce, go on the ketogenic diet, drop your blood sugar. Now you got to grab your weapon, and I'm like, I'm going to get the guy in trouble. So I wanted to go slow with you because here's the deal: shifting your brain from burning glucose to burning fat, people need to. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
And then you could have mood swings. You could have feelings of being lethargic, and I didn't want that to happen to you while you were working.
No, and it didn't. And I think the first time I felt my body switching over to burning fat instead of burning sugar was when I initially went on the Atkins diet.
Right, cool.
So when I switched to the ketogenic diet, I was accustomed, and
so you knew, okay.
I knew what was going to happen. And so I tried it for the first couple weeks. In the first couple days, I did fine. I would eat at 11 o'clock in the morning, between 11 and 12, and then I wouldn't eat again until between 5 and 6 p.m.
Wow.
And that's what I did, and I'm still doing that today. Now, the first week I probably had 1 or 2 days where my body says, hey, you might need to eat a little bit more. So rather than adding an extra meal, I added a little bit more food to the beginning portion of my first meal of the day. And that kind of sustained me till the second meal of the day, and then I was fine.
Right.
I'm usually early to bed anyway, so by the time the hunger pangs kicked in, it wasn't until the next morning, and I just sustained myself until it was time to eat, which was not, it actually became very easy. And it was something that I got accustomed to and my body adapted to very quickly, and I'm still doing that today.
And that's what's really interesting, because one of the things I learned from immersing myself, living with triathletes and then living with emergency workers, that when you're under stress, it could be physical stress from doing a 100-mile bike ride or a triathlon, or emergency stress from working a 48-hour shift. As soon as you get off work, you want that poor man's Prozac, bagel, white rice, pasta, or alcohol. Alcohol is looked at like a simple carbohydrate in the body. So these two groups of people I immersed myself in, and I was doing it myself. I was loading up and trying to medicate myself. But once I made the shift and I got we shifted we were triathletes and we were called crazy. We went on the ketogenic diet in 1996, way before everybody else did. And we made a lot of mistakes, but when your brain starts burning fat, or the ketone called beta-hydroxybutyrate, it actually elevates feel-good chemicals in your brain. Mm-hmm. And I think, God, what an amazing tool. But like you and I talked about, a lot of people are addicted to the carbs, bud. Yeah. And it's hard. I've got to hire coaches right now to help people with that transition, because it's got to be done. It's like turning the dials on a stereo. Everybody's a little different. You're dropped into the second act of a third act play. But the dialogue we had, I knew you would pull it off. I knew you could focus. I knew you were an athlete and you were training. But like I said, I was worried about you having that dip off, but you never had it. So that's no. Okay, folks. The future of taking care of our emergency personnel and our troops, I believe that the brain chemistry is going to be looked at in a nutritional way, and it's going to be looked at in a hormonal way. Recovery from post-traumatic stress has to be multifactorial. Guys that have been in the street for 25 years, like Bruce and myself, we know that these options that we're talking about are not being delivered through traditional medicine yet. So we want to get the word out there, and the only way we can do that, folks, is if we educate you and you get people to talk about this, because nutrition has a lot to do with your brain chemistry and feeling good. Doctors have 4,000 hours of training, but none in nutrition. We know the psychiatrists and the psychologists give you labels like PTSD and bipolar, and they follow it up with a drug. We know that's going to be just a bridge. Everybody's biochemically unique. Every soldier, every police officer, every paramedic is biochemically unique. The sweeping generalization that Bruce and I talk about is, if you look at the intestinal tract, which is considered the second brain, you get it balanced out, you correct all the nutritional deficiencies with the advanced testing that we do, you correct the testosterone and thyroid levels, those things will impact the brain a lot faster and a lot better than Prozac. Just what Bruce talked about, the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting impact more metabolic pathways in the brain than any drug on the market. And this is exciting information, and this is where I think we're going to be able to take this, brother. Folks, listen, emergency workers and the war veterans, police, fire, paramedic personnel, they have a special place in my heart. And if I didn't do those jobs, I would never be able to do what I'm doing today. And I want you to understand that if you have a loved one that's a war veteran or works for emergency services, they run into a jam, we could help them. Folks, you can see what we're doing on the Russ Scala YouTube channel, and also check out Scala Precision Health. And I want to thank my buddy Bruce. Thanks so much, man, for sharing.
It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it, brother.
You betcha.